name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you guys are listening to Destroyer 40. Our special guest tonight is singer Richard Kendrick. How are you doing tonight, Richard?
I'm doing pretty well, other than a little bit of a cold.
Okay, now, could you share with us, Richard, how you first became a Kiss fan?
Oh, Lord. Well, that would be back in the 70s. My dad took me to see, I guess it must have been the Love Gun tour, but I had been into Kiss, probably from, this is silly, probably from the first time I heard Death, and then I saw, I saw Kiss on TV, and so it would have been, 75, 76, around then is really when I got into them.
And now let me ask you, when you first got into Kiss, do you remember, did you see a picture of them? You mentioned Beth, did you hear that song on the radio?
Oh yeah, that song, at the time I lived in Pensacola, Florida, and it was all over the radio, just constantly. I mean, I guess it was probably AM radio, but it was all over the radio, and I think I remember seeing them maybe on the cover of a magazine, or what? I actually think it might have been just an album cover, something like that. But I remember just thinking, these guys look crazy.
Yeah, guys. The reason I ask is, Kiss is very much like Alice Cooper, Motley Crue, very theatrical, where a band where the look is just as important as the as the music. Now, I was kind of curious, how much of the makeup and the look and the theatrics did that have to do with you being a fan, or were you as equally into the look and the image as you were the music?
Well, I was probably an Alice Cooper fan before I was a Kiss fan.
Wow.
That's because my aunt had gone to see Alice Cooper, and I forget which tour of it, but she was a huge fan of the Welcome to My Nightmare record, and she was constantly playing Cold Ethel.
Wow.
The song Cold Ethel. So I got into the song Cold Ethel, and actually my dad took me to see Alice Cooper before he took me to see Kiss. So I guess it was probably just a combination of both. I was into, at the time, I guess it was like, the Who and Elton John were kind of, and Queen were the only things I was really hearing that I was, ELO, maybe a little bit of that, and so I guess I was always kind of a rocker, and I guess the theatrics kind of excited me too. I was one of these kids that got to stay up on Friday night and watch Midnight Special. So
yeah, and Kiss. The cool thing to me about Kiss, besides the look and the music, was it was not your typical band where just one guy did all the lead singing. I mean, typically Gene and Paul did the majority of the lead singing, but from time to time, like you said, like with Beth, we got Peter got a lead vocal on that, and then with on the next album, Ace did Shock Me. So that's another cool thing. But did you have a particular member of it, like was your favorite member or a particular member you gravitated towards?
Well, early on, especially I guess once I started playing guitar a bit, but early on it was Ace Frehley. But I would listen to these records and I would realize I was hearing different voices.
Yeah.
I didn't know which guy sang which parts. And what's funny is even recently, you get kind of used to the live versions of songs.
Yeah.
And then maybe some of that stuff isn't cataloged. They don't play everything that was on Destroyer live, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't go back and listen to Destroyer for 4 or 5 years or whatever, but you listen to live songs, and then you go back and put it on and you listen to it, and you go, wow, I never realized that was Paul Stanley, or that was Gene Simmons, or, you kind of just go, oh, and, it was a voice.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that's sort of been a revelation over the last few years, is to listen to some of those records with the ear of, like, a producer, and hear things that kind of didn't poke out, because if I've heard those songs in years, sometimes it's been the live versions.
Wow. And now, so the very first thing you heard of Kiss, we mentioned earlier, was Beth, and now you mentioned you've seen the band for the first time, like on the Love Gun tour. So it's one thing, of course, to hear Kiss on the radio, but talk about the very first time you experienced seeing the band live. That had to be like just the ultimate life experience at that time in your life.
Well, I got to be honest. I remember. So my dad took me to see the Love Gun tour, and then he took me to see, I believe it was the Dynasty tour.
Okay, quite.
and I was pretty young for the first one. maybe 7,
Yeah.
7 or 8. So I really remember, other than like the picture that's inside the Alive 2 record, that's the way I picture that now.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't as dynamic. I mean, I think they shot off everything to the picture.
Yeah.
That's the way I picture that show in my head now. But the Dynasty tour kind of sticks out a little more for me because I was a little older and I got to, at the time I was rebelling against them a little bit because, I had just heard I Was Made for Loving You in its original kind of disco form. And
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of it. I mean, I was a big Kiss fan.
Yeah.
I was listening to it. I bought the record and played it to death, but it was still, I was a little upset about that. Alice Cooper would get on stage and rail against disco, and that's the way I kind of looked at it.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting because you kind of like the first when you first get into Kiss, Beth was the first thing you heard, and that of course was a single off Destroyer, which is the album we're talking about tonight. So a lot of Kiss fans, from what I understand, back in '76 when the album was initially released, they kind of when the album was originally released, they were kind of against it because Destroyer came off of the heels of Alive, which just was a great raw, in your face, in concert thing, and then Destroyer comes out, and it's a little more polished. It's not as raw because of maybe Bob Ezrin's production is a little more of a commercial, radio friendly value to it. And initially, a lot of Kiss fans were against that, but when you shared with me that Beth was the very first thing you heard, and oddly enough, a lot of people were against that song because it's like Kiss had never done a ballad before. So for you, Richard, when you heard that song, what specific? I mean, it's a great song. Nobody can argue. But what when you heard that song, why did it have such a mean so much to you when you heard it?
Well, I don't remember exactly who or how it happened, but somebody put together for me the notion that band with the crazy makeup that I had seen in the store or whatever was this same band.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling that that they weren't just about this little ballad thing. Matter of fact, I had a cousin who had Alive, and I don't remember sitting there and listening to it, but I remember seeing the album cover sitting there, and I knew, like, well, there's obviously no way that these guys that look like this, have that look or are just doing this ballad thing. But I mean, I guess I was probably, my mom was into all kinds of different music, and so I wasn't necessarily, just gonna listen to, hard rock or whatever.
Yeah.
I was into anything that was good music.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing you say that because for a simple fact, like I said, a lot of Kiss fans initially were against that song, but surprisingly, it went on to become the band's biggest hit. And the amazing thing too is Gene and Paul were so against even putting it on the album, but the band's manager Bill Aucoin and Bob Ezrin, they saw the commercial potential, and even Ezrin got a hold of it, and he kind of added his thing to it, and he played the piano on it, I understand, and he kind of did his own arrangement of it and kind of popped it up. But and it's amazing because Peter's got that claim now. Well, everything Kiss has released, my song was the biggest hit.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some bragging rights there, And the thing about Bob Ezrin, I can go listen to some Bob Ezrin, Alice Cooper stuff.
Oh yeah.
Put in Destroyer and listen to some specific things on there. I'm like, geez, like this is just quintessential Bob Ezrin, and that's not a bad thing.
Oh no.
I think it was certainly, honestly, I kind of think it was what they needed.
I mean, I will say this: Bob Ezrin to me was the secret ingredient, the fifth member of the band on that album.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's all kinds of little production tricks on that record that when I was a little kid listening to that record, those were the things that I was more intrigued by than maybe some of the songs.
Yeah.
And it's funny, kids are impressionable. I mean, I was definitely listening to the words of the songs and getting my own opinions about what those things meant. But the things that stuck out to me were like, Bob Ezrin's kids making noise in the background on God of Thunder, and the very end of the record, I forget what they call it now. The Rock and Roll Party.
Yeah.
Remixed it a couple years ago. Like, I used to sit there and listen to that thing, trying to figure out what the hell that was. And I think that all of those things sort of mattered.
Yeah.
It wasn't all about just, how good was King of the Nighttime World or something, although that's excellent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to
me, that record was phenomenal.
It's interesting when you make the comparison between Alice Cooper, because I've heard Paul Stanley say, like, in interviews over the years that initially, when they first formed, about the guys all went to see an Alice Cooper show, and Paul's initial thought was, instead of having one guy that gets dressed up, why don't we have all four guys in the band get dressed up and make up? We'll all have our own characters. That's how they kind of got the idea. Then, oddly enough, they get Bob Ezrin, who was Alice Cooper's producer, to do this album. And I don't know if you know this, Richard, but like on some of the tracks, like Beth and Sweet Pain, when Ace didn't show up to do some recording, Ezrin brought in Alice Cooper's guitar player, Dick Wagner, to play on some of the tracks.
That's right. Yeah. And it worked out fine. And maybe it wasn't as authentic.
Yeah.
It wasn't just raw, down and dirty, Kiss on stage. But if you're trying to come up with a big production album, sometimes, even like some of the old Cheap Trick records.
Yeah.
They brought in a ringer here and there to play stuff just to kind of get the feel a little closer to the way the producer heard it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we didn't know any of these little secrets until just, the last few years. They kind of let the stuff out of a bag, so to speak. But back in the day, they were really into protecting, and having everybody believe that all four members of the band played on the album. Maybe they didn't want to let people know what was going on, that Ace had a drinking problem or whatever at the time, but they were really protective of that at the time. And, getting back to Bob Ezrin, I mean, when you also, besides Alice Cooper, when you consider this is the same guy that produced Pink Floyd's landmark album, The Wall, I mean, The Wall and Destroyer got a lot in common. Like you said, the production value, it's kind of a conceptual album. Even if you go back, like on the intro to Detroit Rock City, you got the little, like, Gene's doing a little news report there, and they got different things all throughout the album like that, all kind of different sounds.
Yeah, and I think it brought interest to people who maybe hadn't been interested in Kiss.
Yeah.
To that point, I mean, I'm not saying that Alive didn't do that, because Alive obviously just launched them, but all of a sudden you've got all these people that are listening to Alive and they're waiting to see what's going to happen next. They think they already know those songs that were on the first three records or whatever it was.
Yeah. And what's kind of funny is I was reading that Detroit Rock City was released like as the first single, but outside of Detroit, where of course people in Detroit thought, oh, this is our battle song, this is our song for us. But a lot of people initially they flipped the record over and played the B-side, which was Beth, and then I understand a couple of months later they re-released Beth as a single and put Detroit Rock City on the B-side. So again, that's just kind of the public deciding what they want, which is cool.
That's right. Well, it's kind of like when Queen released "We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions," and both songs blew up, and they basically just started playing the album so they could keep the songs connected.
Yeah. And now, Richard, I know I'm going to give you a little bit of trivia. I don't know if you may or may not know this, being the Kiss fan that you are, but another interesting thing is, did you know that it was Paul Stanley, not Gene Simmons, that wrote the song "God of Thunder"? And I don't know if you've got the Kiss box set, but there's an actual demo version on the box set, or you could even go online, I'm sure, and check it out on YouTube of Paul Stanley singing "God of Thunder." But Bob Ezrin thought, you know what, Paul, that sounds more like a Gene song. And the funny thing, and he really had the intuition for it, because the funny thing about that, Gene became his character. He became known as the God of Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought about that ever since I heard that. I think about that. I'm like, man, it's almost like Paul had to have been thinking, let me write a song for Gene.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bob Ezrin, obviously, the intuition,
Yeah.
I mean, it almost, I guess in some ways it almost seems obvious, though. In some way, it does just sound like, hey, Gene should be doing that. that whole thing. But I mean, we've got the hindsight, you know, the 2020 hindsight of having seen Gene doing the character, singing the song.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, as a Kiss fan, you know, having the demo available on the box set and that, it's a cool collector's thing to have, but and kind of get what maybe the song was originally intended to be. But I think the version we get on Destroyer is you know, much better. You know, it's the song fits Gene much more better, I would say.
Yeah. You know, one time I saw Kiss, I can't remember what tour it was now, but you know, up until it doesn't matter. I saw them, and Gene was completely ragged out vocally. He was having a hard time croaking through anything.
Yeah.
And Paul Stanley started singing all of Gene's tunes.
Wow. Yeah, I read something about that a few years ago. Yeah, on the internet. Yeah.
And it was cool.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I mean, Paul was really singing strong. You know, he wasn't having any vocal issues or anything, and he sounded great. And I just thought it was kind of neat, because it was obvious that even though Paul Stanley's been in Kiss for a million years, he didn't know all the words great.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm sure he didn't have to sing them all the time. But he got through it great, and the audience, you know, got to see something sort of different and special.
Wow. Yeah. And now let me ask you, Richard, another thing I know, you know, you're obviously a Kiss fan and grew up on Kiss music, but another thing I know, you recently, a couple of years ago, got the opportunity to appear on a Kiss tribute album called Rock and Roll All Night, a tribute to Kiss. You got 2 songs on there. You actually, by yourself, you do a great version of Forever, and then along with Ron Keel, you guys are doing co-lead singing on Lick It Up. So I was curious, how did you get a chance to take part in that project?
Well, there's actually some background to this record, but there's also background with the label that did it. I do backing music for Psy Records.
Okay.
And Psy Records tends to do probably 90% tribute albums.
Yeah.
They put out an original record here and there, but it's mostly been for fun, and it's kind of been to promote some artists that, you know, wouldn't normally get to be on a record and kind of show their stuff or whatever. It's kind of hard to explain how that evolved without a lengthy conversation, but I don't even know how many records I'm on, songs I'm on at this point. It's just been kind of one long album recording for the last, since probably 1999 or something. You know.
So let me ask you though. Basically, when they put out a tribute CD on, is it just kind of assumed you're going to have a track on there? Because I must say,
I'm usually on about 6 songs per record. It varies. But so I mean, like for example, like you're mentioning the Rock and Roll All Night, a tribute to Kiss, but actually, some of that stuff. I hate to use the word repackaged because because it was actually there was a record called Lick It Up, a Millennium tribute to Kiss.
Oh, okay.
First.
Okay.
And I'm on a ton of songs on that. And what happened was some of those songs I wasn't necessarily happy with the production on them or that kind of thing. And when it came time to say repackage some of these songs into this Rock and Roll All Night thing, there were new submissions for this record, and then I went back and fixed mix issues or performance issues on the songs I had worked on, and you know, I think 3 or 4 of those songs wound up on the Rock and Roll All Night record. So, you know, for example, on this, the one I was talking about first, the Lick It Up Millennium Tribute record. Let me see. I was on Lick It Up with Ron Keel, and I did Forever, and I was on I Love It Loud, which was actually kind of there's a bunch of people on that, but the way we arranged it, I was really proud of, and when we re-released that on this other thing, I think it came out better. I was on Shout It Out Loud with Jerry Kelly.
Wow.
And then I'm trying to look at this list here because my eyesight isn't what it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm not getting old, but this print's pretty hard to see. Man, I think I did some work on Black Diamond. I'm sure I'm missing something. I can't read all that.
That's all right.
There, but,
I was going to say...
I'm actually on more songs than just the ones that sort of highlighted me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just me going back after somebody sent me something and saying, that's just not going to cut it. We need to redo those guitars, or we need to redo whatever. And, so it winds up just being, production work. For me, being a Kiss fan, it wasn't, some of these records show up and it's literally work.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of whatever band it is, but the Kiss stuff was definitely just a labor of love. What, this is great. I'll play on every song if you want me to.
And a part of that, let me ask you, as far as being the Kiss fan that you are, does that have something to do with, you being such a perfectionist or wanting to make sure these sound so, I mean, like, being the Kiss fan, you want to go in there and do the ultimate job on these tracks?
It was. Partly, I guess, some of it is, I do tend to be a perfectionist, but, it wasn't like I went to school to be a recording engineer or something. This all kind of happened by necessity early on when I first started doing things for Versailles. I didn't have much of a background at all outside of a 4-track, but I happened to come into some gear at the same time that Jake from Versailles needed some work done, and it just, we were. It's kind of complicated.
I hear you, but now let me.
I've used each one of these records to try and become better at recording.
Well, you've cleared a lot up for me, because in fact, when I've been setting up some of these interviews, I came across these 2 tribute albums. I had no idea that they were basically the same thing repackaged, because the Lick It Up Millennium tribute, that's not really available right now, but you get this other thing, Rock and Roll Tribute to Kiss. So that kind of answers that. Now, I would also say, Richard, and you've kind of touched on this, I'd say next to Bob Kulick, you're probably one of the most, I could say, tribute king, so to speak, because you're on a lot of tribute CDs, as we mentioned. Now, besides all these tribute CDs, I imagine you're quite the musician in your own right. So do you have any solo CDs, or do you have a band that you're part of that people could check out any of your original music?
Well, I did. I mean, and this is early on. This is like, 2002, sitting in my bedroom with a keyboard and some ADATs.
Yeah.
I put out a record called Murder and the F Word, and it's a concept record, and it's heavy on the drum machine. When I say that, I mean it sounds pretty good. I have every intention to remix that record and put it back out a little more the way I'd like to hear it now. It's I have like a box of these things sitting in a closet. If I wanted one, I'll just send it to them. But it's not the. It really didn't have a specific direction in mind when I did this record. Jake actually owed the distributor at the time a release, and I had been demoing songs for different bands over the years, and I realized that I had about 8 songs that, if you lined them up in the right order, told a story. I mean, whether it's a cliche or not, it told this story. And so what I did was I sat down and filled in the blanks, and literally a lot of the recording happened as I was writing the songs.
Wow.
It was kind of like we released a fairly fleshed out demo.
Yeah, and
but I mean, it was, it's not that I'm not proud of it. I think some of the lyrics on it, which I never really thought of myself as a lyricist, but I actually thought the lyrics on the record were pretty nice.
Yeah, because I got to make the point. I really love the version. I love both Lick It Up and Forever, but Forever, I always loved that song. But I thought, you really did a great job of kind of making that song your own and really rocking it up. So I got to ask, like, when you think of yourself as a musician, Richard, do you think of yourself as like a guitar player first and kind of a singer out of necessity, or have you always been a singer as much as a guitar player?
I like to kind of play the Richie Sambora role in the band.
Oh, okay.
I'm a guitar player. I'm not one of these guys that sits around playing the guitar all the time. Because I realized early on that if all you did was play guitar, you were going to be competing with a million guys that were just as good as you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I spent, years and years and years playing the guitar, but one day I was like, you know what, I need to be able to sing, I need to be able to record, I need to be able to do all these things, and it limited me to an extent on, being Ingve or something, but then again, if a band needs a guy that sings, then I usually get the gig.
Yeah, and then, and I was curious, like, doing these tribute records for Versailles and that, like you say you work behind the scenes kind of with the label too. How much involvement do you have with the other artists that appear on the albums?
Oh man, that varies a lot. For example, let's just say we're doing, golly, I've done so many of these things, and I mean, my resume is way better than what it looks way better on paper than what it is, because most of these songs that I've done with all these different guys over the years that would be, quote unquote rock stars.
Yeah.
I send them something to record over. Maybe I talk to them on the phone, maybe I don't. I deal with their manager sometime or their engineer or whatever it is. So we started out mailing tapes back in the day, and now of course everything is, just send it through, send it through the internet.
Yeah.
Whichever way somebody wants it sent. And so, sometimes people will send me something fantastic. Sometimes people will just send me a turd that I have to try and, rescue. And but then again, we did a long time ago. For some reason, we did a Tina Turner tribute.
Wow.
And I wound up in California recording Tiffany and recording Denise Williams, and then I wound up in Boston recording Nancy Kerrigan, the skater.
Wow.
She wanted to sing on a Tina Turner tribute.
Wow.
So I mean, in those ways, I did actually interact with those three people on that one record. But typically, I would just be sitting in my house, and I've got a studio in my house, and for some reason, my wife's job moves us every 2 or 3 years, so I wound up having to rebuild the studio every 2 or 3 years. But that's a side story.
Yeah.
And I get files from people where, usually it's me starting the songs, and a lot of these records are done with programmed drums. It's kind of what I probably do best in the studio.
That's kind of interesting. People don't realize that, Yeah.
What's that?
I said people don't realize. I think all that. They really think the actual, the actual human beings are in the studio together.
Well, it's an art form. I mean, you don't want people to hear it and go, "Oh, that's a freaking drum machine."
Yeah.
The advantage that we've got nowadays is that most of the time when you hear drums on a record, if they're not a drum machine, they've been sound replaced, and so everybody's kind of used to that sound of drums being sound replaced. So, you can kind of get away with it. But, if you think like a drummer, I think my step-grandfather owned a music store when I was, back when I first started getting into Kiss and stuff like that. And I wanted to be a drummer, so I would go hang out in the music store, and I would beat on the drums and make everybody mad. And they had this young guy there that played drums, and he would try and show me things. And I think I always kind of thought like a drummer first, and I think it's given me an advantage because, if you came to my house and you look, you go to these guitar players' houses, and they have, guitar this and guitar that on their DVD collection, whatever the guitar player, people showing you how to play this and play that. If you look at mine, it's a bunch of drummers.
Yeah.
Mike Portnoy and Mike Mancini and, these different guys and Todd Zuckerman from Styx, and what it is I watch these things to figure out what's humanly possible so that if I'm programming some drums, I don't, go do something that somebody would be listening and go, oh, well, he had that hi-hat going right there.
Yeah.
He also had the,
Well, I would think...
had that hi-hat there when that snare was going in that cymbal. He doesn't have 3 arms.
Well, I think, playing more than one instrument, it makes you a more rounded musician, a better producer, And now let me ask you, because... Let me ask you, Richard, because you make the point that you've been on countless number of these tribute CDs, and the funny thing about it is, Richard Kendrick. It's one of those names where, I know that name. I don't know what the guy looks like, but I know he's played on all these tribute albums. People could probably name every tribute CD you've been on, but they might not even know what you look like or where you're from. But yet you're making a name for yourself. So I got to ask, like, before you got involved with Versailles Records, would you say now, having done all these lead singing tracks, that you kind of realize, oh, maybe I'm a better singer than I thought I was, or over the years it's helped to develop you into a better singer than what you thought you were?
No, I mean, I'm going to have to give you the background on what happened with Versailles. That sort of, I had been in bands that our thing, our quote unquote thing, was that we were trying to be a better singing band than everybody else that was local.
Yeah.
We wanted everybody in the band to be able to sing. And I don't necessarily mean lead vocals, but I mean we had to be, freaking Firehouse. Everybody had to be able to sing harmony. It had to sound big, and I was the one that typically took, a good bit of the high harmonies, or the lead singer and I would swap out who was singing the melody to just give the part the stronger, the most strong vocal presentation we could give. And a lot of people wouldn't see us just switching in and out of each other's parts to give it the strongest part, but I mean that was our strategy. Well, when I started doing this stuff for Versailles, the first actual tribute record we were going to put out, I had a singer, the guy I was just talking about, who he got himself in trouble, and he spent a little bit of time in jail.
Wow.
And when that happened, the song that he was supposed to sing on the tribute, I didn't have the heart to tell Jake, hey, by the way, singer's in jail. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
So I sang it. Like I said, look, I just demoed all this music, and I put a vocal on it. What do you think? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's great. And I was like, well, good, because our singer's in jail, so this is all you get.
Wow.
And so that's how it happened. And next thing you know, I'm at the studio that we had used ever since to mix these records with Jake for the first time, meeting an engineer and becoming really good friends with some guys. And so now we kind of use like this trip to go mix these records.
Wow.
Like a boys' night out for a week,
So
it's just become it's just for fun mostly. I mean, how many records can tribute records really sell? It's not like it's making anybody rich or anything.
Yeah. But I mean, I enjoy listening to a lot of it. I mean, certain ones especially stand out more than others. But I get the fun of it. Like even the rock and roll all night tribute that we were talking about that you have these two songs on. I mean, you got guys from Warren and Alice Cooper's band. You guys got a great group of musicians on there, and if you're a fan of it, like 80s rock, it's you slip it in your CD player in the car, and it's just something fun to listen to. But I really enjoyed it. Now, to kind of wrap this up, Richard, I've really enjoyed talking to you. But do you guys have any tribute albums you're currently working on that are on the way, or do you have anything else musically you're working on that you could tell us about?
Well, I just. Well, that's kind of complicated. As far as tribute albums are concerned, we just released a Dio tribute, a Judas Priest tribute, and an Alice Cooper. Actually, those already are on download sites. I think there's a little bit of production rework that's going to happen to a couple of songs, and then those are going to go out on CDs sometime within the next month or two.
Oh wow!
I may be premature in saying that, but last time I talked to Jake, that was sort of the plan. It isn't always the case that these wind up first.
Yeah.
But for some reason, these went out right away on digital and didn't get CD releases. Usually, I'm at the last minute, getting tweaked these mixes, and then they get mastered, and then they go right onto a CD, and they're out in 2 weeks.
Wow. Well, that's definitely something that I'm looking forward. I'm going to want to check out when those are made available, and you start having actual physical copies. But I got to tell you, Richard, I could talk to you all day. You've really given quite the interview, and this will probably be going up sometime in next month. I'll let you know the minute it goes up. But thanks so much for being part of Destroyer 40, and I hope you enjoyed be part of this, and maybe we can talk again.
Anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, it's kind of nice. So actually, the last time I really did anything like this was when I put out my solo record back in the early 2000s. I guess it was 2002.
Wow.
I did a ton of, you know, like little interviews and you know, review kind of things and stuff, and kind of forgot what that was like.
And it sounds like you're quite the busy guy these days. But any chance there'd be any more solo albums down the line, or?
If I can find some free time between all the little, you know, the older you get, you start getting pulled in a lot of little directions. I am the band. Actually, the band that I mentioned, the singer, went to jail. We still have like probably 2.5 CDs worth of songs.
Wow.
Over the years, I've been slowly but surely recording those songs, and those are going to come out. The name of the band was Straight Jacket Smile.
That was with that's with the mutual friend of ours, AJ Caruso. I know him from doing stuff with him a couple, you know, early on, like back in 2007. I interviewed him, and he did some blogs.
You know, if you can get your hands on the Blick It Up Millennium Tribute, I did Tears Are Falling with that singer I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
And with, I think Johnny D was playing drums on that.
Wow, okay, from Brittany Fox.
Some of this stuff is starting to pop back in my head here. And, you know, that was actually sort of a last-minute thing. I just happened to not... I was living in Belgium at the time.
Wow.
and I was working on this tribute, and I got sick as a dog when I started working on Forever, that song Forever. And I couldn't, kind of like now, I got this little tickle in my throat, and I lost my voice for several months. So I started recording that song and had to wait until I got well. But somehow I wound up in the United States and had this one tune that nobody had signed on as the vocalist for, and I called up my friend and I said, hey, you want to sing on this? And literally, you know, the next day I'm in his house with my laptop and a little, you know, a microphone, and I think I even had to go to Guitar Center to buy some gear to do it. And,
wow, that.
You know, so he wasn't as big of a Kiss fan growing up, so he wasn't familiar with Tears Are Falling. I was literally kind of showing him the song as we recorded it.
Wow.
So, and you can kind of tell when you listen to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, he's a fantastic singer. His name is Ross Stevens.
Okay.
You know, he's just an unbelievable singer. I shouldn't be telling on him and saying he went to jail and stuff.
That's well.
You know, but it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes
part of life.
Is in trouble.
Well, he's doing better hopefully these days. But it's been really great talking to you, Richard, and thanks so much for being part of Destroyer 40, like I said. And boy, I really enjoyed talking to you, because especially, you know, like I said, I really love your version of Forever. You really rocked it up and made it your own, and it's interesting to hear all the little kind of you know, behind the scenes stories.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll send you the acoustic version of that on your Facebook.
Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be
version with no drums and stuff.
That'd be great. And you take care, Richard. Bye bye.